Thin Controller has been having a great deal of difficulty with his bicycle lately. When he had been at Callan Station about a week ago, he'd made a rather bad choice in where he leaned his bike up against. It was unfortunate that he had to resort to propping it up against Percy's post van as a result of his kickstand breaking off earlier. When Percy was done with it, there was much more of it broken off. The Thin Controller's assistant knew a fair amount about bikes and put it back together as best as he could, but it was so badly damaged it always made awkward noises and creaked dreadfully under the Thin Controller's weight. The engines on the Skarloey Railway seldom saw him actually riding it, and mostly saw him walking with it, as he was concerned about the possibility of it collapsing during the ride. One morning, along with a few other things for the Skarloey Railway, James was delivering a brand new bike for the Thin Controller, courtesy of the Fat Controller, to the harbour. As it was delivered 3 days prior to the Thin Controller's birthday, the little engines were to keep it at the harbour until then. But there was a little problem. "That bike hasn't got a bell," James pointed out, as workmen were placing it on a flatbed. Freddy, the old mountain engine, wasn't too worried. "So what?" he asked. "I don't think it's anything to worry about." "Well," retorted James, "is an engine's whistle anything to worry about?" "Oh, I see where you're getting at," said Freddy. "You didn't know about bicycle bells?" asked Peter Sam cheekily. "I thought you were all-knowing, judging by what you've told me about your experience in your younger days." Freddy was rather embarrassed. "Apparently, the company that made this bag doesn't include bells," said the yard manager. "The Fat Controller should demand a refund then," said James. Later that day, Rusty had a bit of bad news. "Driver says that the only shop around that sells bicycle bells is closed until Monday." "But we need a bell by Sunday," groaned Peter Sam. "Not to worry," said Rhaenyra. "We've got Freddy here to help us." "Me?" asked Freddy. "You've always been good at finding things," said Skarloey. "Even now, you still are. You found Rhaenyra when he disappeared down the hill, remember?" "No, of course," stammered Freddy. "I'll see what I can do." The engines were pleased, but Freddy was a little worried. "Look here," whispered Freddy's driver. "I'll see if I can arrange something before I go home tonight. I have a few ideas we could try out." That made Freddy feel better. Just then, Duncan arrived at the yard. "Hey, everyone! Look what I found!" he whistled. "Say, I recognise that," said Rhaenyra. "That's the clock tower bell I lost a long time ago. Where did you find it?" "Duncan spotted it in a tree by the cliff face," said Duncan's driver. "The fireman and I pulled it out. We borrowed a flatbed from Bertram and brought it here." Rhaenyra was most interested. "I'd lost that bell over 50 years ago," he smiled reminiscently. "Remember that, Freddy? I was supposed to take it to Crowvan's Gate to be polished." "Of course I remember," chuckled Freddy. "How could I forget?" "Well, it was partly your fault," snickered Skarloey. "Rhaenyra only stopped so suddenly and lost the bell because you'd broken down on the points in front of him." None of the other narrow-gauge engines were used to Skarloey and Rhaenyra laughing and joking like this. Having Freddy around made the two old engines feel decades younger. Freddy couldn't help but feel good about the task the others had given him. "Duncan found a bell with that much effort," he thought to himself. "How difficult can it be?" The next morning, Duncan had been asked to take the bell to the wharf to be polished. When the job was done, Duncan set off for the station near the clock tower. Freddy was in the shed being coupled up to the flat truck carrying the bike. As soon as Duncan was out of sight, he backed out of the shed. Last night, his driver had asked the farmer if they could try out one of his cowbells, and he said it would be all right. When they arrived, Freddy saw the cows all wearing bells. He didn't think they sounded much like bicycle bells, but he thought it couldn't hurt to try. One of the farmer's workers placed one of the spare cowbells on the new bike. Everyone looked and listened for a moment. Said Freddy. "I don't think that'll work." "No," said his driver. "It sounds pretty stupid." and the cows don't seem to notice. That was when Mighty Mac pulled up. Mighty could see the cowbell on the new bike. Mac could only hear it. "Is that the best you can do?" asked Mighty. "Oh, course not," said Freddy, feeling embarrassed. "This was just one of my, test ideas. My backup idea is much better." "Let's hope so," said Mac. "A cowbell would never suffice." Freddy steamed away, cringing at Mighty Mac's bad timing. He had to find another alternative, but for the rest of the day he had work to do.